Some years ago, I was working with people at the UN, and I used the term problematique to describe something that was more complex than 3 dimensions. And they said, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, let's go and look at this limits to growth report. And they saw these computer maps and 7 different things that were going on. They said, well, this is daunting, nobody could track on this because it's just really too complex. It's something that you can do with the computer that the human mind would never be able really to do until it saw the demonstration of it being done. So you could learn it a one-off by seeing how that's done, and you could say, okay, then that's a special case. The question was, well, how could we, the group I was working with at the UN at the time, how could we begin to think more that way? How could we get another dimension, or 2 more dimensions into our thinking? So we thought about that, and started out with the triangulation, which we're used to, which is, once again, duality, this thing, that thing, and then how you compare and contrast this thing and that thing in terms of a third thing, or A, B, in terms of C. We looked at several different ways of framing this notion so that you could actually see it on a page. And the one we came up with was a circle. And we started out with a circle, and we said, okay, well, what if we want to compare 6 things? We keep 6 things in mind simultaneously. We put one of them at 12 o'clock, one of them at 2, one of them at 4, one of them at 6, one of them at 8, one of them at 10, and one of them at 12. So you'd have 6 things. But then we drew the inner impact lines. There are 24 of them. The relationships were just, it was too daunting for analysis. So we backed it up to eventually 5, and then we got to 4. And when we got to 4, we said, you can actually do this. Because when you draw lines from 12 to 3 to 6 to 9 back to 12, and then draw a line from 12 across to 6, and from 9 across to 3, you have all 6 of the inner impact lines. And what that allows you to do is look at the connectedness, the ways in which, the 6 ways in which 4 things connect. And that, in fact, is something that people seem to be able to handle. We created this thing called an inquiry map. Now I kind of think of it as the Einstein Tool, but the inquiry map allows you to take 4 dimensions of something and array them in a way that you can work with how each of the 4 of them is interdependent with the other 3. And so, and you can do this in a way that allows you to see a whole. When we do this with people, and people do this for themselves, they would start to see things that they hadn't seen before. And our original approach was to say, okay, well, how does 12 o'clock relate to 3 o'clock? And back and forth, because these things impacts go in each direction. And, it took all day. So we got slowed down a little bit because it was still too much work to get through all of that stuff. But what we found was that it didn't matter, because when people were able to see 4 dimensions in interaction with each other, they were kind of in a position, I guess I'm just going to say they were able to intuit a larger landscape, a larger whole, in which these things interacted with each other, and very often began seeing pathways forward, potential solutions, new questions, new problems, new ways of seeing things, particularly saying, oh, we left this dimension out, and look what it's going to do when we put it in. So what it does is it moves you forward by an order of magnitude, at least from 3-dimensional thinking into 4-dimensional thinking.